when someone has had taken the trouble to have a baby with you, you as a father must go the extra mile to ensure that the mother's welfare and the baby's welfare is good. A presence as a father will prevent a lot. You might find that in the end, that's what made the difference. My mother died when I was 15. She was 39 herself. So when I reached the age of 39, is when I realized that she was actually quite young, 49 right now. And I'm just seeing, it's like I'm leaving the decade my mother didn't live. My name is Godfrey Sang. I am a father of 3, and I'm a publisher, I'm a writer and a researcher. I lost my mother through PPH, postpartum hemorrhage. My mother died when I was 15. She was 39 herself. So when I reached the age of 39, is when I realized that she was actually quite young, 49 right now. And I'm just seeing, it's like I'm leaving the decade my mother didn't live, It's been more than 35 years, actually. It's going to be 35 years, because I was only 14 when she died. I was 15, I think, yeah, somewhere like that. So I would say I was probably luckier, because I was already a teenager. But my sister and brother were preteens. And of course, the child that died when the child that was born just about the time when my mother passed away quickly developed, became ill, and also died actually 2 months after my mother. So it was a double tragedy. Yeah, you lose the father, you lose the mother, and the child also that had come with the death of the mother. So with time, it begins to dawn to you, because suddenly there's nobody who is wondering, what have you eaten? There's nobody who is having those intimate conversations with you. Yeah, there's nobody who is minding your grades. There's nobody who is wondering, what next? What are you doing? What are you up to? You got this grade. No. Can we improve it this way? Can we sit down? Can I talk to your teacher? Can I get you tuition? Can I get you extra help? Do you want a change of environment? Do you want a new school? Yeah? Can we go to this and this and this and that? So you enter a regime of indifference. Particularly when you have a father who is also trying to come to terms with a new status as a widower. Okay? And then he's a widower, and if you come from a very conservative society like I do, yeah, this mzee is not expected to go to the kitchen and cook for the children, because that was the mother's job. That is the wife's job. Yeah. So how will the children eat? How will they get their regular meals? Can we have a house girl? Then again, there are these dynamics of, there's a house girl here, then there is a mzee here. So why? I mean, it's very, very embarrassing for the mzee, yeah, to live under one roof with someone who is not his wife. See? And the children are here, and the children still need to be cared for. So it creates complexities in various levels. So of course, then the mzee says, okay, fine, let me get a mother for these children. So, it's not always as smooth as The Sound of Music, the movie, yeah, where you have 7 children, and you've hired governesses all over, and you want to get them now a mother of their own, all right? And the children have their own opinions. So it's a very complicated exercise. Will you get someone who will come and get along with the children? Or will this be an evil stepmother like Cinderella's case? You know, I'm just talking about a lot about how the arts have depicted situations like this, where the substantive matriarch has gone and the child has to navigate their way through a society that has all this. So in that case, then, a stepmother comes, and sometimes it's the children who are the evil, the evil part here. You know, the same arts have given us the case of the evil stepmother. But there's also the case of the evil children. Probably don't want this stepmother, and they mistreat her because they don't recognize her as their mother. Then, of course, there's still that gender nuance. How maybe the boys are more accepting to this stepmother. Yeah? Or maybe the girls are more accepting. And almost always, maybe the girls are less accepting, yeah, of the stepmother. So she now begins to shape her way of life or her attitudes around how she's being treated by these ones. And maybe she has children or she does not have children. So you now look at what are the relations between the new children that are coming here and the children that have always been here. Yeah? And then there are children who are born to this union. How do you interact? So there are very many complexities. Yeah? There are complexities around several levels. There are layers of complexities. Yeah? But that I experience as a result of this. So postpartum hemorrhage is a very, very serious thing. My mother suffered from that, and she passed away 34 years ago in 1990. We were, we were just laying her to rest and all those kind of things, and it was now beginning to dawn to us. I was in third form. So my mother used to pack my, make sure that all my clothes, all my socks, all, the things that are in place, yeah, and would almost be the one that dropped me in school, almost always, dropped me in school. And in fact, actually, was the one that came around the most, yeah, because I remember only trying to get my father to visit me in school for visiting day. It was very, very awkward for him, yeah. But I would see other children being visited, very nice, lunches that they were being brought, yeah, and they were being showered with all sorts of things, because women excel in these kind of things, yeah. But I once coaxed my father to come and visit because it was a visiting day, and he actually came with a newspaper, yeah, just came with a newspaper and then said, "Hey, I was told you're performing on Parents' Day. You told me you're performing. Why? How come you?" Then it dawned to me that I had actually used that I'm performing to get him to come to school. He said, I'll be presenting a poem. Then I forgot all about it, because actually when I said he should come, because I'm performing, I forgot all about it and went about my duties. So when I saw him walking in, I was very, very happy to go and see him. And then he sat, the occasion ended, and then he asked me, I thought you told me you're doing something. Then that's the moment when it dawned to me. But all I wanted was just his company, just to be there with him. Yeah, and, to feel something about this. I remember one time, actually the day when I went to Form 1, I went to Kapsabet High School. Yeah. And they're very proud of themselves that the sitting president at that time, President Moi, was a product of Kapsabet High School. So I was very happy to be in the school. I'd actually been called to Maseno School, but then apparently it was a bit of a distance from where we came from. And so Kapsabet High School, and my insistence actually, I really want to get into Kapsabet. So fortunately, my grades were good enough, so I got admission there. My mother took me in. The fee at that time was 2,990 shillings. So my mother counted 100 shilling notes. 100 shillings was the highest denomination in 1988. And so she counted 30 of them and gave them to the bursar and told the bursar, give him the change. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'll get about 100 shillings for pocket money. I think that I'll be good with that. I didn't know the change was actually 10 shillings. So she said, okay, Mom told me, oh, I've sorted out your school fees. I've also sorted out your pocket money. So the bursar will give you the pocket money. So I said, oh yeah, good. So I was very excited to be in school. Took my box to my, house. Packed it in the right place, the bed I was allocated. I made my bed. Then I went back to the bursar for the money. And the bursar gave me 10 shillings. That was my pocket money for the term, Now, a loaf of bread at that time costs 4 shillings. 4 shillings, but a loaf of bread is. I know it doesn't sound real, but that actually did cost 4 shillings. So, I got my 10 bob. I'm like, I think there's a mistake. There must be a mistake somewhere. How am I going to survive with 10 shillings for a whole term? So my mother came to visit me after 1 month. Of course, the money was exhausted within 2 or 3 days, I think. And then now the hard life began. Because a loaf of bread, without a loaf of bread in secondary school. A loaf of bread was like... you could liken it to, it was like gold. Maybe that's how I can put it. It was like gold. It was so precious. You had bread, you had everything. And indeed, when she came after I had exhausted all my money, she came after a month to see me. She said, I came to see you. I said, Mom, do you know how I've suffered? I did not know. You left me with 10 bob. She laughed and told me those are now the life lessons I wanted you to learn. Yeah, I was giving you a lesson in financial management. I was giving you a good lesson in how a lesson on resilience, And I actually learned those lessons very hard. Lessons that I carry actually to this day, I mean, the way I manage my finances are very reflective of the lessons that I learned at that particular time, So that's just one interaction. So then I said, okay, fine, I get the point, but you're not going to leave me with 10 bob again, let's just agree on that. So she was also constructing, she purchased some plots in town also. She was very enterprising, my mother. And so one time, she completed construction of 1 unit. And she was very happy about it, a rental unit. So she told me, okay, there's a big jogo that's, we need to go with it to celebrate with the Fundis. They've reached a milestone. So it was a school holiday. So I don't know if you know about running around, get to catch the jogo. So I ran around. Woo-hoo. It's a very good rugby practice. Captured the jogo. And I told her, okay, here it is. And she told me, no, you're the one carrying it. I'm like, how am I going to carry a chicken right in the middle of town? And she said, don't know. I said, but I will run into my friends, my school friends, and it will be the talk of the school until I come back. And he told me, no, you do it. I just want you to learn a lesson that if you don't work hard in school, that's precisely what you're going to have to do, to take up jobs that are less dignified because you were playing around in school. So work hard. If you want a dignified, a good job that you leave, in the morning in your car, you get to the office and you leave in the evening, please work hard in school. I carried the chicken in the middle of the town right until I was just praying, please, Lord, don't let any of my friends. We had a girls' school right across, yeah, and I was very popular in the girls' school. Yeah, I was very well known, even people, and if they had seen me, carrying the chicken, I would not have. Anyway, long story short, we got to that place. So I also learned the values of celebrating life's milestones. Yeah, like now reached that particular point, be celebrated. That we had now roofed, and and the time when someone moved in again, and she was very, very happy about that. That she got her first tenants and now moved on like that. So those are some of the lessons that I learned. But the thing is that I was old enough to learn those things. Now, how about the ones that were behind me, who were still grappling with different issues in life? Yeah, a darkness, descends on your life when your mother leaves you, and you can't, you have somebody breathing down your neck. Huh? The caregiver that comes to this child's life sometimes is either a close female relative or a house girl, yeah, will not have the same relationship with the child as was with the mother, yeah, or as would have been with the mother. So there are certain things that they will overlook, all right? Sometimes even the health of the baby, because the mother is always very keen on small things, and it's actually those small things. Because I remember when our daughter was born a while back, the baby was crying in the morning. We woke up in the morning and the baby was crying, this is a Monday morning, in a very, very strange way. And the mother was like, no, I don't like what I'm hearing. I'm not like what I'm seeing. Instinctively dressed the baby and told me, we're going to the hospital right now. Yeah. And I'm like, I think the baby's okay. Maybe you get her some, Calpol. That was the treatment for everything, Baby is cranky, Calpol. The baby is coughing, Calpol. The baby has some temperature, Calpol. That's just precisely what we did back then. No, she said, we're going to the emergency room. And we did. We got there. And when they did the tests, they found the baby had actually contracted meningitis. Can you imagine? And the doctor said, had you come here just tomorrow, today, or maybe later this evening, the baby would probably have been brain damaged or would have died. It was that bad. Okay? So I'm just imagining that if that child was with a caregiver, like a house girl, who would probably just bathe her, try to force feed her, and then try to calm her. Maybe the baby will sleep, but sleeping with a very major disease with them. Mothers are the ones who will make phone calls to teachers, to give you another chance, to give you another, if you fail in a particular subject, they will look for a remedy and find out how you can do better in that one. How they can be able to push you to succeed. Yeah. When you get your first job, they're the ones who tell you, look, now you've got to invest. You've got to put it this way, this way. When you bring home a girl, they're the ones who give you an objective eye on precisely what kind of a person that is, because they get into that situation because they understand, being a woman, they would understand what a woman isn't showing you because of this dating situation. And then they also get to analyze her without that emotional attachment, because the emotional attachment that we have with our spouses or with the people we date always leaves one party blindsided. Yeah, like Percy Sledge said in his song, take time to know her. It's not an overnight thing. That was the advice of his mother. Yeah, he says, don't rush into this thing. Yeah, it's an overnight thing. It's not an overnight thing. But he was not even thinking about such kind of things. He was very eager to start this relationship with her, only for him, ignoring his mother's advice, later comes to compose a song which now has warned generations and generations of people that it's important to take time to know her, because it's not an overnight thing. Yeah, the one person who would give you objective, and this is also to say that those who are contemplating marriage, the one person who will give you very objective advice is your mother. I mean, and this, by the way, is me making a very major assumption that that your mother has your best interest at heart. And that is a safe assumption to make, because it's almost always true. Mothers have the best interest of their offspring at heart, almost by default. Yeah, sometimes even to the detriment of their own spouses. But their offspring will always get the best food. I remember when I got married, and so we had children when our children were very, very young. Sometimes maybe we were having chicken for dinner, and the chicken has been brought to the table, and maybe because I had attended maybe a seminar, I had an afternoon meeting, so I had a heavy lunch. So I'll probably pick a piece. And I said, okay, maybe tomorrow I can have chicken. I was told, tomorrow it's the children who will eat what is left over. If you don't see it again, please don't ask questions. And indeed, I would I would come and say, the following day when you probably skipped lunch, you've come home and you're very, very hungry. You remember the chicken that you didn't eat last night. Then you're like, where is it? And you're like, no, the kids ate it, and that was it. Because they prioritize the welfare of the children first. So I learned a lot about a mother's instinct. Yeah, from now observing that particular situation. And in the case now where a child's mother is not there, then the outcomes are very different. So my own baby sister suffered and died actually of an undisclosed illness, because I'd already gone back to school by the time. So I was called from school and told, the baby has died. But I knew if my mother was alive, that baby would still be alive. Because there's a way in which the caregiver overlooks certain things, because their primary relationship with that child is secondary, certain secondary considerations like money, for instance, okay? Like they're just in it for a job, they're looking for a job. So as far as is possible, children that are in a situation like this should be given extra attention, particularly by the father, who will probably be around 2/3 or at most 3/4 of what their mother or the mother would have been. Certain things that, maybe I'm being very generous. Actually, men, we don't have that maternal instinct to identify small things about a child. There's a woman will look at their child, and the kind of things, it's like that scan from RoboCop. yeah, yeah, or what do you call this? Is this very interesting sci-fi movie by Schwarzenegger, and so just looks at you, scans you top to bottom and says, so a mother can scan you from top and bottom like that, like they have X-ray eyes, and see there's something that is not right with you. Yeah, and then you are either put into some corrective action, because also mothers are instantaneous. They dispense justice on the spot, and they don't care whether you have this. Then there's also the spiritual development, the spiritual aspects, which is very important also. A mother's church the mother's church is a children's church. So an unchurched mother is unchurched children, and that's it, okay? A churched mother is a churched child, and is a child who grows up with certain moral bearings in life. I mean, it's not as perfect as I'm putting it, yeah? But situations are very different. But the moral development of a child, their outlook towards life, their attitudes, their sense of attachment with others, and how they form relationships with others are all largely determined by what their mother has seen, how they have been with their mother, and how their mother shaped them. Right from the womb, by the way, because the child listens a lot to what the mother goes through in the tummy before they come out. So in this particular case, we had to contend with the loss of my sister, my father's other child, and it was the end of an era. I mean, I would come home from school, and home didn't feel the same. Okay, I would bring my friends. In fact, I actually stopped bringing my friends, because I used to bring my friends, and my mother was always eager to know who my friends are, how I'm interacting with them, and what it is, or where they come from. So I tended, so it felt very, very different. In fact, and I had a friend of mine in high school. I told you when she was alive, I was very, very active. In school, I was very popular. And I was never shy, by the way, the opposite gender. Somehow, my mother being there, she seemed to be telling me, even when she was not there, that one, you are good looking, you're brilliant, you are, just those words that prop up a child's self-esteem. You can talk to anyone. You can do anything on earth, I could hear her voice. Even if others disapproved of me, I knew there was one person who will always approve of me, yeah, and encourage me and tell me, go for it. You can do it, yeah. So she was always that voice that was there. But when she died, something in me also died, I mean, I was now less outgoing, I started now keeping just one friend. Because I remember, I mean, this is not, I mean, I didn't have quite like that sense of having a girlfriend in high school, but I had very many female friends from practically every school. And, they would come, and I was such a great conversationalist. They always wanted to come and hang out with me. And we would walk, we would talk, we would, just banter here and there. And the people who were always afraid of the opposite gender, not me. I was the one guy who struck up conversation. I mean, I look at a pretty lady. I'm going to walk up to her and say, hey, my name is Godfrey. What's your name? I like you. Blah, blah, blah. And you know, that kind of confidence, suddenly it died, you know, in me. And I've kept one friend since my high school days, one lady friend since my high school days. And she clearly remembers the me before my mother died and me after my mother died. Yeah. And I became these, you know, I had actually, in fact, kind of like, she actually became the shoulder that I was leaning on, you know. Probably instinctively or in a Freudian way, I was looking at her as my mother, you know. And so I just ended up hanging out with her only. The others who were there, I just lost interest. Yeah, I mean, I used to one evening would probably see me writing 3 or 4 letters. Was my name, you know, I'd get 3 or 4 letters from, you know, the schools across. But that changed. Now I stopped writing letters to those people. I stopped writing letters at all. But of course, so I mean, in my loneliness, I started writing poems. One time, I would also write letters for other kids, you know, my friends who, because I had this sense of English, and maybe that's how I became a writer anyway. So I would write poetry. I was very good with rhymes, by the way, very good with rhyming. So I would get the girl's name and look for a rhyme around it. And the boys were very, very happy. One time, the school teacher on duty came around and looked at, and so it's nighttime, it's prep, because I've been offered 20 shillings to buy that loaf of bread. Very, very precious commodity. So I've been paid that money to write a letter to this lady. So the teacher on duty came, and I thought I'm writing a letter to my girlfriend. So he confiscated the letter, read the letter, you know, in front. First of all, read the letter because he was outside the window, the class window. Me, I'm inside. So he opened the window, confiscated the letter. From outside the window, read it. Oh, I started laughing at this corridor. And then came in front of the class, removed the letter, and said, hey, now this is what you people are doing, you know. And the whole class was laughing at, you know, the kind of lines that I was helping. And it wasn't really it was this, yeah. And so those were the kind of things that, because I had stopped writing letters, stopped interacting with those people, because those are the days when the only way to interact with the opposite gender was through a letter. Those were the days when we had landlines, but you also don't want to look like, you know, yeah. So you don't have a landline at home. It also is telling about your socioeconomic status at that particular time, yeah. So there are many things that changed. There was a me before and a me after. So the me after tended to be very reserved. I was measured in my actions. I had fewer friends, particularly even some of the people that my classmates, my schoolmates. Then I kept to myself a lot and concentrated on my studies, which were also affected, by the way, by the loss of this lady. So at any age, the loss of a mother is very devastating on a child. So, well, I made it to the university. I went, and coming out, or while there, you see, you don't have someone, first of all, to celebrate your primary successes. when you're struggling with something, you don't have someone to bounce it with. And so looking at that gap that was created suddenly. So it was bigger for my younger siblings. And I noticed that that's how their life turned out to be, because they went to school, but they were not as motivated as they would have been if they had someone breathing down their neck, looking for alternatives of how can you do better than this? What kind of a course are you going to do in the university? What are you going to, first of all, are you going to make it? How are we going to, what's the roadmap for you to go to college? What's the roadmap for you, and while in college, constantly looking at your grades, looking at your social life, looking at your balance of things. So I'm here really to talk about the impact of maternal death on a child who has lost their mother. And maternal deaths have a very, very profound impact on a child who grows up without that sense of security, that sense of identity, that sense of attachment, that sense of social, standing as they are, because there's something, a gap that is left in their lives, a void that is very, very hard to fill, no matter what they do. So psychologically, a lot of people whose parents, particularly the mother, left them early in life, tend to have very, very different outlook towards life as opposed to someone who was raised through the early years and the formative years and much later into life with their mothers. So in my speaking today is really to actually just bring out the whole concept of the impact of maternal deaths, maternal mortality. And a lot of times, those deaths are preventable. And we want to create awareness that it is important that we are a little bit more careful about how we can prevent maternal deaths, because maternal deaths creates three things. Number one is of course a widower. All right. In most cases, that's for married women. All right, but it also, of course, impacts the women who are not married. But more importantly, it creates a motherless child. So who is a partial orphan, if they have a father, a father who is active in their lives, or if they don't have an active father in their lives, a child becomes an orphan. So it creates a third angle, is that it creates a secondary caregiver who would probably be either a stepmother or a grandmother or someone who steps in substantially to take care of this child. So many times those create a whole new dynamic in the child's life. Like I've said, it creates that inner void. When scientists have said that when a child suckles a mother, there is a very deep connection that transcends this primary relationship between a mother and a child, okay? That release of the happy hormone, I don't know if it's dopamine or what, during the breastfeeding sessions, okay, creates bonds that last a lifetime. And those bonds are the ones that make us very, very much attached to our mothers, sometimes as opposed to a father. And sometimes you find children will tend to listen to their mother's direction because that oxytocin, or is it dopamine, that was created when the child was breastfeeding goes beyond into their social relations, into how they interact with other people, into how they even interact with their immediate domestic, within their immediate domestic environment. So if a situation like a detachment occurs, then that child begins to struggle, to wallow in a dark environment, you know. And so when they are going about their daily duties, they don't have that sense of direction, because what mothers do is they tend, because the mothers are the first primary caregiver of the child. They mind what the child has eaten. They mind what the child has dressed like, the child's personal hygiene. They mind, you know, all those kind of things. Huh? And all of these work together to shape a child's self-esteem and how they view themselves in society and how they view themselves among their peers. So if they do not, if there's a disconnect in this relationship, then quickly there's a problem in this child's life. So a lot of children are now having to grow up without their mothers. And the biggest culprit, according to the WHO, is postpartum hemorrhaging, right? Children that are left behind because their mothers bled to death as a result of this. So there's a baby that is born. That baby is usually very, very vulnerable, because the formative days of their birth, they will easily succumb to all sorts of things, you know, because again, the immunity that they obtain from their breast milk is not there. So you have to look for milk, an alternative to breast milk, which is never as good as breast milk. So the child is always prone to illness, and that impacts on their development. Now, there are also sometimes other children that are involved here. There are older children other than the one that has been born. So what is the impact of the loss of the mother on the older children? The older children are probably more prone to delinquency, because there's nobody who comes around to find out what they have eaten, where they've gone, what they've done, you know, the clothes, where they slept at night, how, you know. These are things that mothers excel in, as opposed to fathers, for instance. I am a father, and I see some of the questions that my children's mother asks them, you know. Are probably at another level as opposed to the ones that I would have asked myself. So in short, the situation is quite dire when a mother leaves suddenly. When my wife was expecting, you know, a baby, when our firstborn was arriving, I was fully involved, you know, on the day-to-day processes. Yeah. And I remember I was away at work in Kericho when the baby was arriving, you know. And so I made arrangements for her to be dropped in hospital and all these things. And I made a beeline to be there during that process. The baby arrived 2 days later. But I was in the delivery room. I can tell you, I was in the delivery room to make sure that everything was fine. I accompanied my wife for every clinical. We chose the gynecologist. We were always there and asking all the questions needed to be asked. And on the material day when the baby was born in Mata Hospital, I was inside the delivery room myself. I was the first parent to hold the baby. I was actually the first parent to and same thing when the boy arrived. I was right. I was involved right through the entire process until the baby, you know, came on. So we were in a way, it was trying to cope with that situation that happened back then. You know, when someone has had taken the trouble to have a baby with you, you as a father must go the extra mile to ensure that the mother's welfare and the baby's welfare is good. Your presence as a father will prevent a lot. You might find that in the end, that's what made the difference. So in this particular case, I was saving my mother when I was doing all these things with this. Only that, so had someone probably noticed that there's a lot of bleeding, and maybe the person was getting weaker and weaker, you know, until they passed out and passed away. It would have given, but you know, the status of healthcare back then in Kenya was also very low. But even with improved healthcare right now, we're still having many cases of postpartum hemorrhaging. And a lot of women are dying as a result of this. So mine is to say that it would be a greater thing if men walked the journey with women through their pregnancy. It does not matter whether you have a relationship with the mother. I mean, sometimes you find people, you know, don't want to be associated with that. There's some cultural hindrances to those things. I come from a very conservative society. I mean, things of women are there, you know, and we don't want to be involved with them. I think it's a call to a man to be much more involved in the person who would respond better to a situation of emergency or be a better situation manager is this man here, the spouse, so that they prevent a lot. That gap created by the absence of the mother will impact them much more than their involvement in ensuring that the best is done for this child, for their mother, and of course their child. So to avoid such kind of things, it would be a very good idea if we walked, created awareness about the possibility of PPH for our spouses and what that means when we save a life. We're saving many things, saving many situations. So I realize that maybe this was not even the case with me, but a lot of people who grow up without a matriarch in their lives, a mother figure, also develop serious complications with, they develop attachment issues, okay? Their relationships tend to be very superficial. They never form extra, can I put it, extra, the depth of their relationships is very low. So that gap can never be filled by anybody else. Yeah? It remains an unfulfilled situation, and these are the kind of people now who tend to be very violent to their spouses. Okay, these are guys who tend to be distant parents, distant fathers, or distant mothers. I mean, they're not very well attached with their own children, yeah, because their own bond with their parents, with their mother who died, was interfered with somewhere in between. So with that, it becomes extremely difficult for a mother, I mean for a person to get attached to another. So they tend to have attachment issues. Then they're also very, very suspicious about people. Tend to be very, very suspicious. The intentions of people. Because sometimes children are kited around. Maybe the aunt comes around and says, no, I'll go with this child. So they go and live in a totally different environment when they knew their mother was somewhere and has died. So in this new environment, the children become very vulnerable. Okay? They are vulnerable to abuse, sexual abuse. They are vulnerable to physical abuse. They are vulnerable to emotional abuse, and those kind of things. And that even sometimes happens in the home where they are. Because a mother ni mtetezi wa watoto. Anatetea watoto sana. In fact, they will do anything to prevent any harm coming to their own children. Yeah. So a child grows up very, very secure. They're secure when they have their mother. Some of these women who have died were actually, breadwinners in their own right. They were in employment. And then you find that now they're probably professionals. So that profession has lost an important person in their professional community. Being a man myself, sometimes you don't even know where to find salt, even in your own kitchen, So it impacts on how you even take care of yourself, Probably should probably knew how where your socks were kept, how they were cleaned, how they were washed, how your clothes are washed. You have no clue where that happens. And so when a man arrives at home with a baby and the mother was transferred from the ward bed into the morgue, the man does not even know where to start, taking care of that child. What is the size of diapers? What is the baby allergic to? What kind of formula will you give them? The baby already is missing the primary food of a child, which is breast milk. And they're supposed to be exclusively breastfed for 6 months. Now you have to find a formula that will substitute that. And then the baby is crying. You don't know how to, work around it. And many times the fathers cannot handle the loss of a spouse, a loved one, and the constant demands of a baby. And it leaves men extremely vulnerable. Maternal deaths are very, very impactful on children. And I think I was a little bit lucky that I was 15 by the time my mother died. But those behind me probably were more impacted because of this. So there are many, many situations that have happened in life where the gap left behind by a missing mother was very, very well felt. Many, many situations growing up, because it impacted on my sense of identity, my sense of belonging, my sense of security, my sense of my outlook towards life, my attitude towards things, my interaction with people, the depth and the value of the relationships that I formed immediately after that. And if there is anything that can be done to prevent postpartum hemorrhaging, either through science or through call to action or a change in behavior, then it is probably right time to do it, because there are hundreds of children that grow up motherless as a result of postpartum hemorrhaging. And two things happen. One, the death of a mother leaves a devastated child and leaves a devastated spouse.